So till this point in the Power BI session, till now, what we have discussed is what is the business intelligence, what is the high level architecture of business intelligence, and what are the different types of BI tools that are available in the market, and why Power BI is uh, among the most used tools. Okay. And also we discussed about the workflow that happens in the Power BI. And in the last class, we discussed till the difference between the import mode and the direct query mode. Okay. So there's one more thing. Okay. There's a thing called as live connection and the hybrid mode as well. Okay. Now, the thing about live connection is that it is very, very similar to direct query. Okay. But the only difference is that in live connection, we get the data which is actually in the cube form. Okay. Like the data which is coming from the uh, platforms like Azure Analysis Services and then SSAS. Okay. There you see the data which is in the cube form. Now, are you by any chance familiar with the data which is in the cube form? Yes or no?
No.
Yeah, I'll just show you how it looks like. Okay, so just let me, and I'll also show you the data which actually is in cube form. Now, I hope this slide is clearly visible.
Yes.
Now, here you can see there are three things. One is the timeline, which is in the z-axis, that is this thing. And one is the products, which are there in y-axis. And there's one more thing, which is measures in x-axis. Okay. Now, let me tell you what this is all about. Okay. Now, let's say among the measures, there is one measure like the sales amount. Okay. There's another measure. Let's say this measure, this whole block, this series is sales amount. Okay. Then this thing is, let's say, what's the total revenue generated, which is nothing but sales minus budget. Okay. Now, in that scenario, if you consider in total, what will this whole block tell you? Will it not tell you the sales amount which was generated during when? 2015 Jan. For which product? For components. Understanding this?
Yes.
And this block, for example, if you consider this measure as revenue, then what would that be? It would be the revenue for the components in which timeline? In 2015 Jan again. Hope the point is clear. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So this is how the data in the cube form it looks like, and it also is called as the OLAP system, that is online analysis processing system. Okay. And let me just give you a brief example of the data in cube form. Just let me give you one more example so that it's even more better understood. Okay. So I'm opening the Power BI instance in my system. Okay. Let me directly get connected with one of the Power BI data sets, which I already have developed. So now just concentrate on the visual part that I'm going to develop. Okay. And let's say I develop a visual called as matrix, because the matrix is also one of the data, one of the visual, which we call it as a 3D visual. Now, let me tell you why we call it as a 3D visual. So in this matrix, what I'm going to do is there's an option to bring the rows, columns, and values separately. So in the rows, I'll bring certain dimension, like let's say the genre. Okay. And in columns, I'll bring one more dimension, like let's say region. Okay. Now in the values, I'll bring certain measure, like there are many measures which I've created in one of my previous data models. Let's say the total revenue. Okay. Now, let me just tell you what I'm talking about. Now, this also is nothing but the data in the cube form. Okay. So here, if you see on the y-axis, what do we have here? Different genres visible? Yes or no?
Yes.
And on the x-axis, that is, we can say different columns. These are nothing but different regions. Okay. Whereas the values inside it, what are those? The values are actually the total revenues. Now, let me just explain this particular value, what it talks about. This figure which you are seeing here, 16956412651, this is nothing but the total revenue generated for which genre? Adventure
Adventure.
genre. For the region which is
America.
Okay. So this is how usually the cube form of data, it will look like. And as I said, the cube form of data is developed in the tools like Azure Analysis Services, SSAS as well. Okay, so that can be directly imported into the Power BI. And when that happens, we say that, we can connect that in a similar way that we did direct query with, like what we talked about here, the direct query. Only difference is that in live connection, it is very similar to the direct query, apart from the fact that the data that we get from the live connection, it will be in the cube form. Okay. Hope the live connection is clear with everyone.
So can you show me one more time that cube diagram?
Can you see, the visual that I created, or?
Yes, is that.
Sure, once, okay. I think I deleted that, but let me just do it once again. I'll create a matrix. And let me bring something else, like maybe the countries on rows, and maybe something else like the genres. Here is it on this axis, and on the values.
That visual one you are creating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is it clear?
No,
now
sir,
you see on the y-axis, okay, we have the countries now. Okay, on the x-axis, that is in different columns, what do we have? The genres. Okay, and the values which are here, what they are showing us, the total revenue. For example, this particular value, that is 2,72,445. What is this? This is basically the total revenue generated in the country Germany. For which genre? The adventure genre. Clear?
Sir, before that you have shown us that cube diagram.
Yeah, I'll just show you this.
Yes.
This one. Okay.
Okay. If I want to see about this clothing sales and 2015 May, so which cube will represent?
Clothing and 2015 May. Okay.
Yes.
So this one, okay. Now look, this whole thing, or basically this whole thing belongs to clothing. Agree?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
2015 May, where is it? It's basically here. Okay. So the one which is parallel to this along that side, it is nothing but clothing for 2015 May. Understanding this?
Yes, now I understand.
Okay. Great. So I hope you people get an idea that what the data in the cube form will usually look like, right?
One question here.
Mhm.
Okay. The way we import the data, right? That is
Mhm.
import mode. So can we import the data and use this visual or for this?
See, this visual is, I mean, this is not actually the data in the Q form. I'm just trying to show you how the Q form of data looks like. Okay. This actually is not a data. This is just a visual called as matrix visual. Hope the point is clear. And in the visualization, we are going to go deep once we come to the reporting part of Power BI. But right now, we are just discussing how to import the data into the Power BI. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is what the live connection is all about. Very, very similar to the direct query, but only difference is that in direct query, we get the data in all forms, but in the live connection, we get the data which is of the cube form. Okay. Then ultimately, there's this last mode, which is called as dual mode or composite mode or the hybrid mode. Here, what happens is that some of the tables are brought in the form of import mode, where Vertipack compressor takes its course in compressing the data which comes into Power BI, whereas some other tables, they get in the form of direct query. We just established the connection between the Power BI and the backend. Okay. So this is what we call it as dual mode or composite mode, or basically hybrid mode. Okay. So these are the various kinds of the storage modes in Power BI. Okay, storage modes in the sense the way we bring the data into the Power BI. Okay. Yeah. So now that we are clear about how to get the data from different sources into Power BI, let's actually bring the data into the Power BI and let's start working on the transformation part, that is the usage of Power Query Editor to do ETL, that is extract, transform, and loading. Okay. And for that sake, I have the data stored in this folder, which I'll be sharing with you later. And let's try to bring the data. It is I think it's a CSV file. Yeah. So I'll go to the Power BI instance. I'll go to get data, and there I'll select text bar CSV. Okay, just a second. I'll close this instance because the direct it's a direct query which has been connected, but I don't want to bring from direct query. I want to bring from the input. I'll again go to get data, text bar CSV, and then I'll get the data, which is the orders 2017, which is a kind of a raw data, which is unprocessed data. Okay, let me show you how that looks like. Okay. Now, hope the preview is visible to you all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, just by having a look at this table, do you think we can directly load it into Power BI desktop, or shall we go into Power Query Editor and transform the data? What do you think?
Transform the data.
It needs transformation, right? Because there are lots of blank values, there are lots of unnecessary values. Okay. The column headers are not correctly identified. Okay. So we need to go to Power Query Editor to transform this data. Okay. And yeah, let me talk about one more important thing. I'll just cancel this because this is the first and foremost thing that you need to do in your system in order to explore the Power Query Editor completely. What is that? You need to go to Files, okay, then Options and Settings. And in the options, you need to go to, let it just open. Yeah, here, first in the global tab, there'll be a thing called as data load. By default, it'll open. Okay. Here, the first thing, that is type detection, you always set it to never detect column types and headers for unstructured sources. Okay, because that we are going to do ourselves. Hope that is clear.
Yes.
Then also, yeah, this is okay. Allow the data players to download in the background to each file settings. Preview is okay. But one more thing, that is go to the, just a second, let me check. Yeah, go to the current file, and under current file again there'll be a data load. Here, look, there's a thing called as import the relationships from the data sources on the first load, and also auto detect new relationships after the data is loaded. Okay, kindly unselect this. Okay, auto detect the new relationships after the data is loaded, that you unselect. Okay, and yeah, there's one more thing that you need to do. You need to go to the regional settings and make sure that the region is set to English United States, and here as well. Hope the point is clear.
Yes.
And also, along with this, time to time, whenever you work on your Power BI file, you need to make sure that the cache memory is always cleared. Now, can you see here, there's a currently 5.14 MB cache memory that's been used. You need to clear this always. And here as well, can you see this 3.93 MB? Okay, so always make sure that you clear the cache memory time to time. Okay, so these are the settings that you need to maintain. Is it understood by everyone?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes.
So now I'll go to get data, text bus CSV, and I'll get orders to 2070. Okay. Now I'll go to transform data, which will lead me to Power Query editor. Now, if you look at this, we are actually in the Power Query editor, and let me just go from the basics. Let me just unselect this. I'll come back to the home tab. Okay. Now, in this table, basically, which row you think should be the column header?
5.
Fifth
Row number
row.
5, right?
Yes.
Row number 5 is supposed to be the column header. Okay. Now, for that to happen, we actually need to delete the first, how many rows? 1, 2, 3, 4. Clear? Yes or
Yes.
no?
Yes.
So for that sake, what we need to do is, at the top tab, can you see remove rows? I'll go to the remove rows, and there I'll select remove top rows. Okay, I'll click on remove top rows. And once I do that, it'll ask me how many rows should I remove? How many? 4.
4.
So I'll select 4 and I'll click on OK. Done. Now, basically the top 4 rows have been removed, and it's still working. Yeah, I think it's done. Okay. Now you see, the thing here is that applied step, I mean, that transformation step has been added. Can you see this in the right panel?
Yes.
Okay. Now, one more thing about this is that here, if you click on the gear icon, you can actually adjust the step that you performed earlier. Let's say by mistake, let me just perform it once again. I'll remove this, and yeah, you can always cancel the previous step by clicking on this cross mark. Okay, let me do that. And if, let's say by mistake, if I remove, instead of top 4, if I remove top 5, okay, if I do that, then by clicking on this gear icon, I can adjust that previous step by mentioning 4 instead of 5. Hope the point is clear.
Can
So
you
it's
repeat once again?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Now, look, this was how the file, I mean, the table exactly was when we got it. Agree?
Yes.
Now what I'm doing, I have to remove the top, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Okay. Now I'll select remove rows, top rows, and instead of 4, let's say if I click on 5, if I mention 5 rows, now you see that step has been added. Clear? What I can do is I can click on the gear icon, and instead of 5, I can mention what? 4, so that the previous step can be changed. Is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay.
So this step is like undo. Whatever you did before, you just undo it.
Yeah, if you basically see, undo is like if you remove the previous step, it is
Yes.
undo.
Yes.
Okay. But if you want to alter the step, even that is available. If you click on the gear icon, for some of the steps, the gear icon will be available, but for some other steps, gear icon will not be available. Okay. Let me show you. Okay. So now we have basically, yeah, what we have done, we have cleared the unwanted rows, which were basically blanks. Okay. Now, next thing, what we need to do, this we need to bring to column headers. Agree? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
So for that sake, you see that in the home tab itself, there is this option called as use first row as headers. Is it visible?
Yes.
So click on that. Then what will happen? Can you see now the column headers have been mentioned? Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is now see again one more step has been added, which says promoted headers. Clear? Whenever you want, you can remove some step. Okay. That will be nothing but like undo. Okay. Now, let me show you one more thing. Okay. Now, let's say you have brought the data from which source? It shows here. Okay. You have brought from a particular folder. Agree? It's visible?
Yes.
Now, let's say in the backend, okay, if I place that file somewhere else, okay, let's say if I cut this file from here and if I place it, let's say in the outer folder, okay, and then what will happen? Immediately you will not see any change. Okay, it is exactly as it is. Okay, just a second. Yeah. But now let's say if I refresh it, then what will happen? Can you see? It's not able to bring that file. I mean, in order to refresh it, basically all the data has to be reloaded. Agree?
Yes.
And it is not able to do that because what it says cannot find the file. Okay, because we basically have moved that file to another folder. Okay, and if that happens, what you need to do is, let's say here, you need to go to the source and you need to change the source. Either you can do it from here by changing the source here, else there's one more way. That is, you need to go to data source settings. The tab is visible here. You need to click on data source settings
Yes.
and it will open. And once that happens, you need to click on change source. Okay, now you need to again browse it, browse for the file where you have kept it. It's here apparently. I'll point it to that. I'll click on open, okay, and close. And now if you try to refresh it, now can you see? It's again available. Point is clear?
Yes.
So this is how you need to change the data source if you have placed file somewhere else, or let's say if you're trying to bring the data from some other source. Okay, so let me bring that file back into that folder. That I will paste it in this folder again. And for
So
that,
location should be same, right? When we import. Location should be same when we import the data here.
what do you mean same exactly?
I mean,
Hmm.
just now you show, right?
I'm changing it once again. Okay. Clear? Is it understood or not? See,
Yeah.
basically I changed the folder again, but here again I made the changes in the data source. Okay, so that doesn't matter. Okay, the file is exactly in the folder which I have pointed it. Okay, you can see here it's in the class 3. Okay, fine. So this is how you can change the data source settings and point it to the file where you have placed it. Okay, now next thing,
So I have one doubt.
please.
As you have deleted some blank row from top, okay. As I can see, there are so many blank rows between this data. So can I also delete those?
Yeah, we are going into that. Okay, I'm
Okay.
coming to that. So this is nowhere the clean data till now. Okay, we are going to further modify it, and further we are going to make it more uniform. Okay, so the transformation steps have not completed it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, next thing is that we basically want to delete all the blank rows. Now, if you see, there are certain rows which are blank throughout. Okay, if you look at this row, it is completely blank. See here, this one, and you see it's again completely blank. Okay, so what you can do is here again you can go to remove rows. Okay, and in remove rows, what you can do is you can click on remove blank rows. Okay, and when you do that, the rows which are completely blank, they will get removed. Is that clear now? Okay. Now, next thing. After this, let me show you one more thing. See, there are certain rows in here which are duplicates. Can you see them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the order ID 3 has been repeated thrice. But before deleting the duplicates, you also should see whether are they duplicate in all the columns. Okay, now let's just check this out. Order ID, it's 3. Product ID, it's also P0219. It's same for all the 3 rows or records. The store ID is same. Then the date, the order date is also same, right? Then what else? This thing, the sales is also same, the 5 sales. Can you see this? And similar are rest of the records. So it is clearly observed that this is nothing but the repetition of the same record throughout all the columns. Agree?
Yes.
So what we can do now is we can just click on remove what? Remove duplicates. And once we do that, those duplicates basically will be removed. Clear till now?
Yes.
Sir,
Hmm.
I have
Please
if
go ahead.
if we import this data from an SQL database, right?
Yes.
Then there is something called as primary key. So in
Yeah.
that we won't be seeing the other columns, right? Because it's a primary key, so we'll just focus on the primary key and see the duplicate.
Yeah, this is a primary key actually. Order ID for this table is actually a primary key. Yeah.
Okay.
Now the thing is, yeah, I know what you're talking about. You basically are telling me that when you bring the data from the SQL, basically the backend people, they make sure that the primary key, it is done according, I mean, this column is done according to certain constraints, like the unique constraint which you're talking about. Agreed?
Yes.
Now you say that they will know that there won't be any duplicates in this column since it's a primary key, right?
Yes.
But what I'm talking about is, let's say you have not got the uniform data from the backend. Okay, I'm talking in that sense. In that case, how can we clean the data in the Power Query editor in Power BI itself? Got the point?
Okay.
Okay, so that's the thing which we are talking about, because I know this thing can be done in the backend in the SQL as well. You can implement certain conditions for specific columns. but I'm just giving you the solution if that has been not implemented from the backend via SQL. Hope the point is clear.
Yes.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Please go ahead.
So does it mean that only by using the order ID will be, sorry, example, by using the primary key will be removing the duplicates, or it will check the whole table or the whole
Look.
columns and then it will remove the duplicates?
The thing is that, look, now when I looked at the duplicates, did I look into other columns or not? I did, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now the thing is, let's say if we have the duplicates also in the other columns, it means that the same row has been repeated.
It should be.
Agree? But let's say if it has not been repeated, the records in the other columns, they are kind of distinct. Okay.
Mhm.
In that case, you certainly cannot delete those records.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, because those are some distinct records, and if you're deleting those, you are basically, or you're essentially deleting the data. Okay, that should not happen. And if you see that happening, then what you can do is you can contact the backend engineers in your organization and tell them that the order ID, which is supposed to be the primary key, it is actually repeated. And the repetition also makes sense because it has distinct values for each order ID. Then you have to tell them to summarize the data for each order ID and give it back to you. Okay. I'll tell you later what the summary data actually means, because we are going to get the summary data for this table as well. Okay. But if such kind of thing happens, you don't go on deleting the data because those are distinct values. Hope the point is clear. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, basically, we have deleted some of the duplicate records. Okay. And just by having a look at it, can you think one more record can be deleted here? What is that? Yeah.
And NA,
This NA, okay, the row number 2, basically. Let's check whether it is NA in all the columns, or basically NA or some record which we don't want. Okay. So you see, all the values are either NAs or either they are blanks. Okay. And we certainly don't need this kind of record. So what we can do, look, we just need to click on the drop down which you're seeing beside the order ID. Okay. And there you will see that NA value. Let me just show you. Can you see this? Now simply unselect that particular value. Okay, so that it will be filtered throughout. Got this?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So the NA value also has been removed. Okay, now the next thing, let's try to have a look at all the columns. Okay, and whether they make sense or not. Okay, first of all, let's try to look at this table. Basically, this table is nothing but the orders table, or basically the sales transactions table, where each record is characterized by a unique order ID. Then we have the product IDs which have been sold, the product which have been sold. There's one thing called as miscellaneous detail column. Now let's try to have a look at the values that are present in here. If we click on drop down, you will see the kind of value it has. So can you see it either has blanks or NAs or nulls? Okay. Now, do you think keeping this column will make sense? No, right?
No.
So what we can do is we can simply delete this column. Okay. I'll simply right click in here and I can remove the column. Okay. You can remove the columns from here as well. Okay. I'll just remove by right clicking it, remove the column. Okay. Then there is the store ID, which is nothing but the ID given for the store where the transaction has been done. It makes sense. It has certain values. So yeah, it has certain NAs, but let's deal with them later. Okay. So this makes sense. There's this order date, the date when the transaction actually happened. Then there is the sales quantity, how many products were sold in terms of quantities. Then there is the revenue column. Then there is stock column, the price column, the promotion type column. Let's just have a look at this. It has all the values apart from some blanks, but it's okay.
Sir, one doubt over here.
Please.
On the sales column, actually,
Mm-hmm.
it's in text format, right? I mean,
Yeah.
string format, right? So
Yes, yes.
shouldn't we make it as
I'll
numbers?
come to that. Okay, let's go step by step. Okay. By the end, I'll make sure that this whole thing is completely cleaned. I'm trying to, I know what you're getting at. The point you're trying to make is the sales quantity, right? This
Right,
is
yeah.
mentioned as 0 sales, 1 sale,
Yeah.
and all the things. If you try to establish the data type, it will not happen because it's a combination of number and string. Okay,
Right.
if you try to convert, it will not happen. Okay,
Right.
but let's get to that later. Let's just go to the establishing data part later. Okay, let's just have a look at bird's eye look at the different columns so that we can figure out a particular column can be deleted or kept. Okay, here. So yeah, this is the promotion type we talked about. Then there's this bin column and it has certain random values. Okay, and let me talk about the practicality. Whenever in your projects, in your company, if you're finding certain columns which don't make sense, then directly don't go on removing the columns. You just ask your backend team about what's the purpose of that particular column. And only if they are okay with you removing the column, then you remove it. Else, they might also tell you that they themselves will remove that column from the backend, then you need not do anything. Clear?
Yes.
We'll go to the next one, the promotion type 2, then bin 2. I think bin 2 doesn't have any values. Okay, I'll remove that as well. And then the discount column. That's this one. It also has either blanks or NAs, or is there something else? Nothing. Okay, so this also can be removed like this. Okay.
In future, it might have something, right? Because it's just blank.
Yeah, as I said, before removing the column, you always need to
Check with the team.
contact your DB people or the data engineers or the backend people. Okay. If there is any such thing, they will definitely tell you. Okay. So this is one way in which you can remove the columns. There's also one more way. Okay. Let me show that to you. I'll just cancel the previous step. Now, can you see the steps? I mean, Power BI is actually trying to consolidate the steps. Let me show you how. Basically, how many columns we removed here? 3 columns. Agree? Now, can you see there is no, separate step for each column being removed.
Right, yeah.
For all the different steps that we performed for removing each column, it has consolidated all those steps into one single steps where it says remove columns. Quite evident?
Yes.
So basically, Power BI, what it is trying to do, Power Query Editor, it is trying to consolidate the steps so that the model that you are actually going to develop is actually optimized. Okay. So now let me show you one more way in which you can actually delete the columns. Okay. Let me just remove the previous step. Those columns actually will be back. Okay. And what you can do is you can go to choose columns. And in choose columns, again, you need to go to choose columns. Okay. Then what you can do is you can unselect the columns that you don't want to see. Okay. So which were the ones we deleted? Miscellaneous detail, and then bin 2, and also the discount. Okay. So if you do this, then you will only have the columns that you want to have it here. Okay. Point is clear?
Yes.
And there's one more thing. Let's say if you have more number of columns in your tables, and when I say more, I'm talking about, let's say if you have 20 or 30 or maybe 40, 50 number of columns. Okay. And then in that case, let's say you are not able to find a particular column which you want to see at that particular moment of time. Then what you can do, under the choose column, can you see there's one more thing called as go to column? Click on go to column, and there you'll be seeing all the columns that are there in the table. You just click on a particular column and click on OK. You'll be taken to that particular column. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this is how we deal with different columns. Okay. Now let me show you some more thing. Okay. Let's go back to the order ID. Okay. That is this table. And just try having a look at the different records. Okay. And if you have a look at the record number 26, okay, what is it basically? It is the order ID 26. And if you have a look at the records in other columns, are there any records? Basically, there are no records. Can you see any? It's
No.
completely blank. Okay. And there's one more thing. If you see order ID number 28, if you look at all the other columns, what are those values? NAs. Okay?
Yes.
And the keeping NAs in all the records, also all the columns also will not make any sense. So what you can do here is you can simply unselect those two things. So 26 and one more thing was 28. Okay. So I'll unselect those two columns, or basically those two records. Okay. And I'll click on OK. Those two records will be removed. Point is clear, people?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we have implemented certain changes in this model. Okay. Now let's try to establish the data types. Now, what is meant by data type? Is it understood to everyone? What is the data type? Or not?
Yes,
See,
sir.
in the column,
Yes.
basically, we have different values. The data type means the type of value that the column has. It might be either number, okay, then it might be the character, or basically string values. Okay, character like the ABC, or basically the string values. Or maybe it might be a date data type. The type of data, it might be the date. Okay, so there are different types of data types. And among the numbers also, it might be the decimal number, or it might be an integer or a whole number. Okay, so we are supposed to establish the data types for each column now. Okay, now you see beside the header at the left hand side, can you see the ABC being mentioned here?
Yes.
And what is the meaning of ABC? ABC means the string. Okay, ABC means the string. That is basically the text. Can you see? Beside text, the ABC is mentioned.
Yes.
Okay. Now the thing is, if you have a look at, let's go from order ID now. Okay, if you have a look at order ID, do you think it's a text?
No, it's number.
No.
It's a number, right? So order ID, according to our common sense, it should be a whole number. Okay, so let's identify it as a whole number. Okay, so we have established its data type. Clear?
Yes.
Now, similarly, if you have a look at the prod ID, or basically the product ID, what should we do here?
It's a string
Correct.
value.
It's the string itself. Okay, because if you see, it's a combination of alphabets and numbers, and such value will always be a string itself. If you try to convert it to number, it will not happen. You will never be able to convert this character P into a number. Okay, so you will keep it as it is. Clear? Then the store ID, again, what is it? It is a
String.
string itself.
Whole number.
It's not a whole number. It starts with S, S0137.
Okay.
Certainly not a whole number. It's a string. So let's keep it as a string. Okay. Then next thing, that is the order date. What this is supposed to be?
It's a date type.
It's a date type. Okay. Date data type. I'll select it as a date data type. Okay. Now, the next thing, the sales quantity. Okay. Now, if you rationally think about this, we actually are supposed to analyze the sales quantity. And when I say analyze, I mean we are going to perform some mathematical operations like addition, subtraction, maybe do some kind of aggregation, maybe average of sales, all those things. But do you think if I keep the column like this, like if I keep it as a string, will I be able to perform those mathematical operations?
No.
Certainly not, right? Okay, so this needs further modification. Okay, so basically we'll come to that later. Okay, because it involves furthermore transformation steps. Okay, but we'll move to the next thing, the revenue. Okay, if you have a look at the revenue, the values, different values, if you look at the revenue values, what do you think this data type should be? Yeah.
So we don't have a whole number, it's decimal kind of data mix up.
Okay, so basically this is a decimal number.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a decimal number, but let's see, there's also one more thing called as fixed decimal number. What is fixed decimal number? Fixed decimal number is basically what you implement when the field which we are talking about is a currency. Can you see a small dollar sign here?
Yes.
Okay, so if I make it a fixed decimal, so basically that is nothing but a dollar. We are talking about the currencies now. Okay, so that's okay. I have established it as a fixed decimal. One more point to be noted when we do convert it to a fixed decimal is that the number of decimal points, can you see how many are those?
Two, it's a constant.
Okay, so it will usually be 2 if you make them fixed decimals. Okay, next, if you look at the stock, again look at the values. Okay, what do you think this should be?
Whole number.
Whole number, right? So let's convert this to a whole number. Okay, then next.
So it was in a decimal format, right? If I'm not wrong.
Come again?
Previously. It was in a decimal format, right? Previously.
No,
Okay.
previously it was string. Everything was string. Okay. So we converted that.
My bad, yeah. My bad.
Okay, no problem. We converted that to a whole number. Okay. Now let's look into the next column, that is the price. Okay. If you look into the price, the values. Now there is one problem with this. Can you tell me what is it exactly?
NA.
NA we have.
There is NA value. Okay. And if I try to convert this price into decimal or fixed decimal, then what will happen? I'll get an error because this NA value, it will not be converted. Getting the point?
Yes.
So in that case, what we need to do, let's check where it is NA first. Okay. First, what I'll do, I'll check where it is NA and let's see if rest of the rows are also NA in there. Understanding what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So basically I'll just click on, I'll select the NA. Basically I'll unselect all these things and I'll keep only NA just to see what values it has in other columns. Okay. I'll click on OK. Now you see the price is NA, but the values in other columns, can you see there are some legit values? I can't simply delete those NA values. Understanding this?
Yes.
So in this scenario, what should I do? What will make sense? I'm just clearing the previous step, but the NA is still there. Okay. Look, what we can do is we have to implement one more step. Okay. Now, can you see there is a thing called as replace values? Seeing this?
Yeah. Yes.
Click on this column where you want to avoid the NA values or any undesirable values. Click on replace steps or replace values. What is the value to be found?
NA.
NA. And you can either replace it with 0 or you can replace it with nothing. If you replace it with nothing, it will be a blank. Okay. And even the blank is okay, because if you try to convert a column which has blank into some other data type, it will accept that. Okay. So for now, I'll replace it with nothing. Okay. I'll click on OK. Now, what I'll do, I'll try to convert this to a decimal number, or basically fixed decimal number. So it will happen without any problem. Point is clear? Okay.
Yes.
Now after this, the promotion type, basically it is again a string, and it is supposed to be a string because it's a combination of the characters as well as numbers. So it makes sense. And the bin column, again, it's a string value. So we'll not go into that. The promotion type, again, this also is a string. Okay.
Yes.
So let's keep it that way. Okay. Now let's talk about the delivery date. The delivery date is supposed to be what?
Date
The
format.
date data type. Okay. But you will encounter some problem in this if you try to change this. Let me show you. Okay. And this might happen when you are doing your job in your organization as well. Let me show you what's the problem. If I try to convert that to a date, okay, now you see the date it has taken, okay, but sometimes the errors you will encounter once you press close and apply. Okay. See, now what has happened? We have done all these transformation steps. Clear? And let's say if you're okay with the steps, what will you do? You will load that data into Power BI. And for that to happen, what you need to do? You need to go to this tab and click on close and apply. Let's close and apply. So that the data along with the transformation steps will be loaded into Power BI desktop.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yeah, please go ahead.
In the date column, right?
Uh-huh.
At times, I used to work with Alteryx. So what happens, like, for 100 rows, let's say 50 will be in a different date format, and another 50 will be in a different date format. On that case, we'll go to the custom and then we'll make it. So how does it work over here?
You mean to say changing just the format?
Right. It's in date format only. Like the whole column is in date format, but it's in a different date format.
Okay.
Like MMDD or DDMMYY.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, if it's able to identify it as a date, then it will definitely do that. Okay. But let's say if if the way in which the date is mentioned itself is wrong, then it will, you can't help, you have to replace the value. Okay. But it's just in the different format. Then in that case, it will definitely identify. Okay. And what I'm trying to tell you, next is exactly the same. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, if you see there is one error, the data has not been loaded correctly. Okay. And if that's the case, you need to click on view errors. Okay. And let's just see where, in which column we had the error. So if you go back to the Power Query editor now, okay, see there is errors in this. Can you see one more query has been loaded? This is our original query, which is orders 2017. But after encountering error, there's one more query or one more table which has been added, which is nothing but the errors. Okay. So let's look into the column where we have found the error. It is quite clear. Where is the error? In the delivery date. Clear?
Yes.
Now, what we'll do, I'll go to the original table and we'll try to modify this. Now, here you see the delivery date. Can you see below this column, there are some red values. There is some red color, right? If you see this red color, then it is quite evident that this column has certain errors. Okay. Now, although you're not able to see all the errors, but it certainly has certain errors. Can you see this? Occasionally, you can see some errors. Okay. And this is specifically for date columns. If you find these kind of things, then what you need to do is, look, first of all, you need to change the previous step. Okay, that is the step where you change the data type. Okay, I'll go change here. And once we do that, can you see the price columns data type also has changed? You know why?
The step
Because
has
it
been
basically
summarized.
consolidated two steps wherein we did perform the similar step. Which similar step? Changing the data type. Remember? We changed the data type for price as well as we changed the data type for what? delivery date. Okay, but prior to that, the step was different. Which one was that? Replaced value. You remember in price column, we performed this replace value. NAs were replaced with nothing.
So in price, what we did before, we did, I think, decimal.
No,
Look,
NA has been
the thing
replaced
is,
with null, like
now,
0.
look what I'm trying to say, okay? Before performing this step, that is before changing the NA values with nothing, prior to that, we also changed some data types before price, remember?
Yes, yes.
And since this step is different that compared to the steps we perform next, after this replaced values step, what we did next, we changed the data type of price as well as date. Remember?
Yes.
Okay, so only those two steps were consolidated, not the ones before that, because there is one different step before this change data type and the change data type we perform next. Getting the point?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'll do, I'll again convert this to the fixed decimal, the price one, and then I'll go back to this delivery date. And here what I'll do, I'll change its data type in a bit different manner. Okay, what I'll do, I'll right click
So
on it.
does that mean that the same steps will be consolidated? Right?
Yeah, similar kind of steps will be consolidated. Yes, that's what I said. Okay. Now, I'll right click on the delivery date. Okay. And here I'll go to transform, basically change the type. Okay. And here in change the type, can you see at the last we have using local. Okay.
Yes.
Click on using local. And there, if you remember, in files, options, and settings, the region we had established, what was that? United States. Remember that?
Yeah.
So sometimes what you happened, as someone earlier mentioned, the format in which different dates are sent to us from the backend, they might be different. And if that happens, what we can do is we can try performing this step. So what is the data type which you're talking about? We are talking about the date. Okay. And the local, which is actually set to English United States, we can try changing that. For example, I will try changing it to English UK. Okay. And if I do that, so basically what will happen, I'm trying to change the way in which the format, date is formatted. Okay. So I'll click on OK. Now you see it has been changed. Okay. And if I click on close and apply now, now we will not face any problem. That model will be loaded into Power BI desktop. Hope the point is clear with all the steps that we had performed. Okay.
Yes, sir. Can you explain one more time the issue? So while close and apply.
What the issue? It's simply click on close and apply.
No. Yeah. So before, if you apply close, before when you select close and apply, it shows some error, right? So I think it's.
Sir, I also want to ask, what was the exactly reason we get error in that date type? What was the reason actually?
So the reason was exactly as someone earlier had mentioned. So this delivery date column, it had the dates in two formats. One was in US format and another was in the UK format. Okay. So basically that will usually be the case when you encounter such errors in the date column. Okay. And if that happens, you have to change this date data type by using local. Okay. Again, I'll show you. Right click on this, click on change type, then go to using local. Okay. I'm basically trying to show you the same step. Okay. But yeah, let me just close the previous step and then I'll show you. Okay. So I'll go to change type, then using local. And there you need to select, just a second, data type, which is date, and the local, which is set by default to English US. maybe I'll change it. Okay, you can try changing it to India as well. Okay, so basically this is the trial and error which I'm trying to mention here. Set UK. So if I do this, this date will be established. Okay.
So can I say basically you are saying, so in delivery date, data was coming from 2 different regions. So that's why it get this error, because we had 2 different type of delivery date.
Data was not coming from 2 different regions. The data, I mean, the way in which the date format was mentioned was different for different records. Okay, because if you consider the region, it's basically the region, I think, also is mentioned here, because all the store IDs, generally what will happen, they might be coming from the same country as well. But even though you might face this situation, okay, where what usually the people will do, I mean, what will usually happen, I'll tell you. The date or the data you might be getting, it might be from the systems like the transaction systems, or sometimes the Excel files, which the people are trying to enter the data by themselves manually. So some people might follow DD, MMM, YYYY, or some people might do like DD, YY. Okay, so if this happens, okay, that's the scenario when you need to implement the previous step, as I said. Is it clear now?
So by changing it's a UK format, so it will be just like same, like DDMMYY.
Yeah, UK, generally what's with the UK format is that the UK format and the way in which we use the Indian format is almost same. But when it comes to US, the format is different. In US, what they do is they mention the month first, then the date, and then the year. So in that scenarios, okay?
Okay.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yeah, please go ahead.
In the date format, for example, say that we have DDMM format, which is like year is not mentioned, and there is another type is also like DDMM YYY, like 2021 kind of. So when we change into UK format, how do we get to know, like, the DDMM format will also be get converted? It will have
no, the thing, if the way in which you mentioned, that is, it's only DDMM, then it will not identify it as a date itself. Forget about converting. Okay.
On that case, can we write a custom one and then have it?
So look, the custom way in the sense, you can change those specific values. Wherein you have only DDMM, you can add or replace those specific values. Okay, that's what you can do. Okay, but again, those have to be individually or manually replaced. Okay, because I mean, they're not the common values which you're talking about, right? Because they will be distinct values. So it cannot be generalized. So individual values have to be replaced. And the best way to do it is through the backend itself, not here in the Power BI. Okay. And one more thing, this is very important. Even though I'm trying to show you all the applied steps here in the Power Query editor itself, as far as the optimal performance of the Power BI model is concerned, it is best that you keep the number of steps minimum here. It is best that all these steps are performed from the backend itself through some ETL tool or maybe in SQL. Okay. All these things I'm showing it here only because I just want to demonstrate that it is possible in Power BI as well. Okay. But although Power BI, it comes with its own ETL tool, that is Power Query Editor, it is always best if you perform all these steps from the backend and just get the ready-made data in here. The point is clear?
Yes,
sir, I have a question. डेट जो फॉर्मेट है सर, तो उसमें 1 मार्च या 1 अप्रैल 2017 कर सकते हैं क्या?
Come again, please.
ऑर्डर डेट में,
ऑर्डर डेट में
डेट टाइप में 1 मार्च लाइक 1 मार्च 2070 लाइक 1 अप्रैल 2070 लाइक इस तरह से.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. Look, yeah, look, I'll press close and apply. I'll show you. आप फॉर्मेट के बारे में बात कर रहे हो, है ना?
Yes.
So format changing need not be done there. It can be done here as well. Now let me show you. This is Power BI desktop. Okay, not the Power Query editor. Format changing, I mean, not the data type changing. I'm talking about the format changing. Format changing can be done here itself. If you click on a particular column, there'll be column tools. Now, can you see the format in here?
Yes.
In this format, you can choose the format which is available for you, or you can also manually mention the format, like you said, DD, MMM, YYYY. This also you can do. And if you do that, the data will be appearing like you said.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this you can do in Power BI desktop itself, not the Power Query editor. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the time is done for today. Are there any doubts that you need to ask with respect to today's class? Or with respect to anything that has covered till now in this Power BI session?
So one small doubt. In beginning, when you were removing some duplicate value, okay. So okay, right now, okay, we have less data, so as we can check all the columns, all are similar or not. But what happened when we have millions of data and we have so many duplicates value? All the time we have to do like this.
Yeah, I'm anyways going to cover that in next class, but I'll show you quickly. Okay, if you go, I'm going to Power Query Editor once again. There's a thing called as View tab.
Okay.
In View tab, there's a thing called as Column Quality. Okay. Now in Column Quality, and there's one more thing called as Column Distribution. Okay. Now can you see this thing mentioned here, 1,000 distinct and 1,000 unique values?
Yes.
It means that all the values are unique. There are no duplicates in this column.
Distinct and unique are same. Yes.
Distinct and unique are not same. Distinct and unique are different.
No. I mean to say we have 1,000 number of distinct value and 1,000 number of unique value. So
that's correct. Okay.
That value are same.
So here you can definitely see how many, I mean, if there are duplicate values or not. Okay. That you can see here. No matter how many number of rows are there in your data, you can certainly check it here.
And
anyways,
by using this, we can identify which is the unique column also, right?
Exactly.
I mean, primary key.
Definitely, yeah. And generally, if let's say you have the sales table, then order ID itself will be a primary key, 100%. Okay. Again, it depends on the kind of business that you're talking about. I mean, if for sales transaction, it will be order ID. For something, for some other details, it might be something else. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any more further doubts, people?
So just one last thing, not a doubt. By using a lot of transformations over here, does it mean that the Power BI weightage will be increased? I mean, the size will be increased for loading and all those purposes.
In the thing, look, basically size will be exactly same as the size of this table. Okay, that will not change, but certainly what will change is number of transformations that are performed in the Power BI. That will be more, right?
Yeah, right.
And if number of transformation steps are more, it means you see what's happening. Look, the backend data is coming from certain file, and after coming into Power Query Editor, it has to undergo all these transformations, and then it will get loaded into where? Power BI desktop. Agree?
Yeah.
So it means that there is a lot of stuff happening in the Power Query Editor, which will certainly lead to more memory being consumed. Okay. So that certainly is not an ideal situation, to be frank. Okay.
So that's all from my side.
Okay. And yeah, as far as the assignment is concerned, I'm loading an assignment file as well as the instruction to do the assignments as well. Okay. So go through that. Okay. I mentioned clearly what you need to do. Okay. So perform that.
About that, I wanted to ask. Today is actually my first class. I missed the last one. Okay. So so about setup, you were talking about some business email. Actually, I don't have any business email and all. So how can I log in into this Power BI desktop app?
See, business email in the sense email with a domain. Do you at least have the college email ID or something like that? You can
No,
log in even with that.
right now, no, sir.
No. So there's one more way in which you can create a temporary domain ID. Okay. Try Googling it. Okay. Else, I'll tell you that in next class. Okay.
Okay.
Create a
And
temporary ID and try to log in. Okay.
you have mentioned that I have to download Microsoft SQL Server. So which one I have to, developer or Express Edition? You have to download.
Express Edition is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
On setup, I have to Google it.
No, the thing is not on setup. The thing is when you try to install it, it'll ask you which one you want to install. Okay. There you need to select it.
Any version in particular in your mind, sir? Like,
come again?
Any version, SQL version particular in your
See,
mind?
you just take a latest version. I think there's a 2023 or 2022 version presently that Microsoft is giving. That you take, not a problem. Okay.
So can you share that document?
Which one?
You were showing that.
Yeah, all these things I'll share it in WhatsApp itself. Okay. I'll share a RAR file in the just unzip that RAR file. It'll all be there. Okay.
So in case I missed from first class also, can you share that one?
The first classes files are also shared previously.
So actually I have joined yesterday.
Okay, I'll share it once again, not a problem.
Same with me actually.
Okay. I'll share the first classes assignment files as well. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Fine then. I'll stop the recording. Yeah, we'll